Black economic empowerment is a racially selective program launched by the South African government to redress the inequalities of apartheid by giving certain previously disadvantaged groups of South African citizens economic privileges previously not available to them. Although race is the overriding factor, it includes measures such as employment preference, skills development, ownership, management, socioeconomic development, and preferential procurement. Rationale. After the transition from apartheid in 1994, it was decided by the government of the African National Congress that direct intervention in the redistribution of assets and opportunities was needed to resolve the economic disparities created by apartheid policies which had favored white business owners. B intended to transform the economy to be representative of the demographics, specifically race demographics of the country. B was defined in the 2001 Commission report as follows: it is an integrated and coherent socio-economic process. It is located within the context of the country's national transformation program, namely the RDP. It is aimed at redressing the imbalances of the past by seeking to substantially and equitably transfer and confer the ownership, management and control of South Africa's financial and economic resources to the majority of its citizens. It seeks to ensure broader and meaningful participation in the economy by black people to achieve sustainable development and prosperity. Successful implementers of B also see it as a means to create economic growth in South Africa and as vital to advance the corporate strategy. The B program was implemented starting from 2003. It was criticized for benefiting only a narrow stratum of previously disadvantaged groups, and this led in 2007 to the introduction of a modified program called Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment or BBBEE legislation. On the 9th of February 2007, the new Codes of Good Practice of the Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment were gazetted by the South African government. This included the following codes: Code 100 Ownership, Code 200 Management and AMP Control, Code 300 Employment Equity, Code 400 Skills Development, Code 500 Preferential Procurement, Code 600 Enterprise Development, Code 700 Socioeconomic Development, Codes 800 to 807 Qualifying Small Enterprises. The following sector scorecards have also been gazetted: Financial Sector Scorecard, Construction Sector Scorecard, Tourism Sector Code. Also gazetted were general guidelines and definitions, among which the definition of the beneficiaries of B. The definition is the same as that of the Black Economic Empowerment Act of 2003, which states that black people is a generic term which means black Africans, coloreds and Indians, and included provisions to ensure that they must have been South African citizens prior to 1994. The fact that Chinese individuals, who were also submitted to legal discrimination prior to 1990, have been excluded as beneficiaries of black empowerment, has led to a renewed media debate regarding the definition of black in current legislation. As of 2008, Chinese people have been reclassified as black after the Chinese Association of South Africa took the South African government to court and won. The B legislation is supported and functions in conjunction with various other forms of legislation, including the Employment Equity Act, Skills Development Act, Preferential Procurement Framework and others. The legislation was developed through numerous task teams and have taken more than 3 years to be gazetted since the first Act and the first Codes of Good Practice released in November 2005, which address Statement 100 and 200. Subsequent codes were released in December 2006 addressing codes 300 to 700. based on public and stakeholder comments. The final codes were adjusted and gazetted. On the 11th of October 2013, updates to the Codes of Good Practice of the Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment were gazetted by the South African government. These new codes provided for a transitional period of 1 year 6 months. The changes include the consolidation of duplicate elements such as employment equity and management control and preferential procurement and enterprise development. The new codes have increased the effort of compliance by introducing priority elements: ownership, skills development and enterprise development. The points allocation system includes sub-minimum targets thresholds of 40% for these priority elements. Failing to achieve the thresholds result in penalties of dropping the compliance level. The updated codes were as follows. Code 000 Framework for Measuring Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment. Code 100 Measurement of the Ownership Element of Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment. Code 200 Measurement of the Management Control Element of Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment. Code 300 Measurement of the Skills Development Element of Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment. Code 400 Measurement of the Enterprise and Supplier Development Element of Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment. Code 500 Measurement of the Socioeconomic Development Elements of Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment. Sector scorecards were given until March 2015 to submit sector charters. Scorecards. Enterprises may be rated based on various scorecards. However, only the following have been gazetted as of February 2007. Generic broad-based scorecard. Generic narrow-based scorecard. Qualifying small enterprises narrow-based scorecard. Qualifying small enterprises broad-based scorecard. Financial sector scorecard. Construction sector scorecard. The last two, financial sector scorecard and construction sector scorecard, have not been passed into law. They were gazetted under Section 12 of the Act, which is for comment only. They will need to be gazetted in terms of Section 9 of the Act to become an official sector code. Until that happens, all enterprises falling in these two industries are required to use the Codes of Good Practice in producing a scorecard. Significant leniency for small enterprises has been built into the gazetted codes. Based on the Qualifying Small Enterprises Codes, all companies with a turnover under R5 million PA is completely exempt from B and automatically qualifies as a Level 4 contributor or achieves 100% B contribution recognition. The generic broad-based scorecard. All 7 pillars must be addressed, totaling 100 points. Note: this table is outdated and will be replaced by the revised B codes of October 2013. Qualifying small enterprises are rated on the following scorecard and may choose any 4 of the pillars to address, totaling 100 points. Exemption. Small businesses, generally with a turnover of less than R5 meters, are considered to be exempted micro-enterprises and do not need to be measured against the B scorecards as stated above. However, these businesses are often forced to employ people based on skin color to avoid discrimination by potential clients, who are generally still subject to B regulations on choosing business partners, suppliers or service providers. Criticism. Critics argue that B's aim was to attempt to create equality of the workforce of South Africa as a whole by enforcing the advantaging of the previously disadvantaged and the disadvantaging the previously advantaged. This results in businesses having to consider the race and social background of any potential applicant instead of making decisions purely based on qualifications and experience, resulting in a system in which one's race is often the determining factor in finding employment. Instead of using this type of policy, it has been shown by critics that a policy of qualification equality should be used. This would allow businesses to focus on employing the person with the highest qualifications, the most experience and the best recommendations, to allow previously disadvantaged individuals to achieve these qualifications and experience. Critics of B say that the government should place more emphasis on secondary and tertiary education, as well as subsidizing companies wishing to employ entry-level applicants, or fund tertiary education for students from previously disadvantaged communities. In response to criticism, the South African government launched broad-based black economic empowerment, which is the current gazetted framework for addressing black empowerment beyond enriching a few, but with little effect. B has also been criticized for creating a brain drain, where the qualified white expertise is emigrating to countries where they would not be discriminated against. Inkatha Freedom Party leader Mango Buthelezi is a strong critic of B and supports this view. He has stated that the government's reckless implementation of the affirmative action policy is forcing many white people to leave the country in search of work, creating a skills shortage crisis, warning that South Africa is sitting on their powder keg. Archbishop Desmond Tutu argued that black economic empowerment only serves a few black elite, leaving millions in dehumanizing poverty.